Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good times, whatever time it is, wherever you are listening. Joined with me, as always, Mr. Chris Cute.
How you doing?
And Mr. Jamie Page.
How you doing?
A huge welcome to everyone in the chat, but especially our good friend, Mark Christopher. And I've just completely, it's gone from my head, your Jurassic Wood, Mark. There it is. It popped back in for a second. I was like, I can't remember
how to make the guests feel welcome and valued.
You know when your brain just stalls.
And that's been around a while, Richard.
Yeah. Yes, you're not quite as long as Chris, but get in there.
What did I do? I swear I just sat down and I said, hello, everybody. That's all I've done so far. And I'm already catching it. What the hell?
It's going to be a long hour, Chris.
I'm guessing.
For those of you listening at some time in the future, that is what a rabbit in the headlights looks like. So anyway, Mark, how are you? Because we haven't spoken for a little while. What have you been up to?
I've been busy at work. Thankfully, I managed to hang on to my job through all this craziness this year. But I've been doing a lot of work outside around on the property. A lot of gardening projects for Gail. And the last little while, actually, before Nova Scotia just got shut down again, I had started teaching. I was teaching. I've taught a couple of pen classes at a community workshop in downtown Halifax. And which I found actually quite rewarding because I've been asked for years to do like a trainer's role at work, and I've always, even though I've got lots of experience, I've always been of the view that I don't have the temperament for it. But anyway, the 8 students that I've had so far, they seem to like the way I taught, and they're all quite keen to make pens and such. So anyway, I was enjoying that, and then everything got shut down again. But other than that, I'm back into my own pen production again now that the weather has turned, and I get to spend more time in the shop. So that's been about it.
Do you know what, that's kind of a heartwarming story, because I know, just chatting to people, not just in the community and across the globe, but people in the street, there seems to have been, with obviously. And we haven't really talked about it. I certainly haven't talked about it at all in any of my videos because, it'll all blow over and eventually people will get back to normal and forget about it. But it's going to be people that kind of fare better, I think is probably the way. There's going to be people that really suffer. My heart goes out to them, but people that are going to kind of weather the storm slightly better. And it sounds like, coming from, because you're in the aviation industry, aren't you? You're I want to say air traffic controller, but I don't think that's 100%. Flight dispatcher. So, just very very briefly for the ignorant me, what's the difference, and how does that kind of?
Air traffic control, their job is to keep all aircraft separated safely. And for us, as a dispatcher, we work specifically with our company. We plan the flights with with a view to economy and safety, with trying to find the best routes and things like that for the smoothest rides for our passengers. So I'm just concerned with my aircraft, but we work hand in hand with air traffic control as well.
So air traffic, they deal more with the space, don't they, and anyone in it, whereas you deal. Right, gotcha.
Yeah.
So, if an airport is going to launch an airplane, Mark is the guy that decides how much fuel they get, how much time they have, how much of this they get, how much of that. He's the dispatcher. He's the one that's in charge of making sure that everything is cool. And apparently,
he needs to.
He's gone now.
Plug in his laptop. Hope he doesn't forget that at work.
Yes. Well, you're airborne now, so you're obviously air traffic over to you.
You're on your own. I've forgot to plug my laptop in.
Well, this is a proper edit point, Richard. If you don't mind me asking you to do me a brief favor, and I'm sorry to everybody who's watching, pull your audio down a little bit because, brother, you're overmodulating a lot. No, not there. No, the volume output, Richard, on your computer. Just pull it down a wee bit, if you don't mind, because you
honestly don't know. Okay, yeah.
Well, you've done it before, and you know what I'm talking about. So
you can do it inside StreamYard if it's easier, Rich.
Hang in there, Mark. While you were taking a break,
How is that?
we're doing an audio adjustment. That's not bad, as long as you don't speak up real loud.
Oh, hang on. No, that's the wrong one. That's the one I wanted.
There you go. Perfect. Now you can talk.
There we go. Is that better?
Yep. Okay. Edit point over with. Let's carry on.
Awesome. Okay. And Mark's back as well.
So let me leave off where we left off. I was explaining to these gentlemen that Mark, as a dispatcher, you decide how much, like perhaps like a fuel a plane might get and all that kind of fun stuff in order to make sure they get to the flight and have some in reserve and things. Am I wrong about that?
No, it's we need to plan enough fuel to get from A to B. Plan for any contingencies. If there's any weather along the way, if there's air traffic control delays, we'll add additional fuel for that. Enough fuel then to get to an alternate airport, and then we have reserve fuel on top of that. And then once so we share authority with the captain up until the point of brake release for takeoff. So once they go airborne, all the decisions are the captain's. And then I'll provide input as he needs. I'll try and feed him as much information about his route. If it looks like in 300 or 400 miles he's going to have to go around thunderstorms, I'll start looking at an alternate route, well back, rather than have him run right up to a storm right here and then have to do this. I'll actually have him open the angle out much sooner. You get a much better ride. It's just a lot more efficient. So yeah, we stay ahead of the aircraft at all times.
So, quick question though. Rather than having to look at this much fuel and that much fuel and that much fuel, why not just fill up the tank?
That could get prohibitively expensive if you're going from a station that, if it's just for round numbers, $3 a gallon versus $6 a gallon. You're going to shoot yourself in the foot and be out of business in pretty short order. That being said, however much fuel we need is what we're going to take. The other thing too is that it costs fuel to carry fuel. So if you're needlessly filling the tank, you're heavier. You're going to burn more fuel as you go along. So I mean, you're kind of shooting yourselves in the foot. That's the economic consideration. But what you look at is how much I need to get the mission done. So we look at mission fuel, and that's what we'll put on. And if it turns out that there's a significant cost savings at a particular station, we will uplift additional tankerage fuel to save money on the return leg. So even if you could either get away with not having to refuel at a more expensive station, or if you did have to take on fuel, it's going to be a little bit less. You're going to save some money, but safety never gets compromised. And it's a licensed position in North America. The Americans have an actual license. We have certification here in Canada. I just did my annual Recurrent Transport Canada ride on Wednesday. That was 5 glorious hours of an oral exam. So they just throw scenarios at you and question every single thing you do. So that always stresses me out. But anyway, the government has deemed me qualified, and I have it in writing. So
as long as the rubber stamp is on that crap,
that's it. I'm good till January 1st, 2022. But yeah, I'm very lucky, as Chris well knows. I'm very lucky. I love what I do. I've been in this actually Friday, 2 days ago, was my 39th year in aviation since I started flight school. I started out as a pilot. And it was before that, when I was growing up, Dad worked for the U.S. Air Force. Mom worked for TransCanada Airlines, the previous name of Air Canada. So I never had a chance, but I love what I do. So
it's awesome. It is awesome.
I wonder how many people listening were like, 2 days? You've been doing it 2 days?
No. Mark described himself perfectly the other day, and I saw it on a post that he made on Facebook. He goes, every time I hear a plane or a jet, however you want to describe it, go overhead, if I stop looking to see what kind of plane that is, then I know it's time for me to retire. Because he's that much of an aviation nut. He just loves... He loves planes.
The youngsters at work describe myself and several of my colleagues as aerosexuals.
Yeah, because they get off. They get off. Oh, wow, look at that! I've never seen that plane before. That's kind of cool. Anyway, Mark, back to your making atmosphere, and I described it in the description that we wrote today because you live in a very unique area of Canada, first of all, but a unique area, compared to a lot of the rest of the world. Because Nova Scotia really is a hotbed of artisans. There are a lot of artisans in your area, and I don't. We can get into the time that I spent with you prior to the first Maker Central in a little bit, but just describe that environment to us, because people who don't have it, I don't know that because I've been there, first of all, and I don't know that I can describe it because it's very unique and it's very quirky, but it's very cool at the same time. I don't know how to describe it.
I think it goes back to it's the same thing in my home province of Newfoundland. You have a lot of small communities. Like we've got a couple of larger cities. Well, we've got Halifax, which is the largest in Atlantic Canada. And then there's a few other smaller cities, Sydney and Cape Breton. And that's really about it as far as cities go. But then there's some, good sized towns. But especially in coastal regions, and you find this throughout New England as well, is that you find people that are very good. You find everything from boat builders. I've got one of my maintenance controllers is building. I think it's his like third or fourth boat in his garage. So there's a maritime tradition of boat building. But I think what a lot of it is that you're so isolated. You either A, need things made. Or B, you're trying to find a way to pass the time. And my wife is an artist, and Dale works in all kinds of different mediums, from painting glass blocks to commandeering my bandsaw, which she's now declared as hers. But she'll come down.
She's to buy another.
Yeah, she'll come down here and rifle through my wood stash and find something and then create something that's incredible. She works with glass blocks and with fabric and all kinds of things. And
she cast one hell of a resin table that you guys now have. Yes, you guys now have in your kitchen. It's a kitchen table. It's like
that's her copper penny table. Yeah. And Gail, like I make sawdust. She's really an artist. But I think getting back to the region as a whole, you find people that they're glass makers, they're leather workers, they work with textiles, they work with wood, they work with iron. I remember, Chris, when we went over to visit the lads in New Brunswick, and we went to the ironmonger's shop.
Yep.
And it's like you just find these in smaller communities. It's not like you're finding a lot of these places in large urban areas, we'll say. So I think a lot of it is just because of our geography, because of the weather, that you find people that are just generally creative. In Newfoundland, there's a place called on Fogo Island, and it's an artist's retreat, and they've built it in such a way that the artists' pods are like almost on stilts, and they're built at the shoreline, so the artists are literally over the water. And you end up with people that are incredibly talented, that are drawn to this because it's something they've never seen before. And I think as a lot of smaller communities, are fighting for ways, to maintain their economic engines, if you will, you're going to find a lot more people moving towards, the smaller craftsperson, who's got something that, to offer, if they're making candles or if they're making face masks. I got one of my laid off colleagues, him and his wife have been flat out making face masks. I've bought some face masks from them. Another one makes candles. I bought candles from her. Jewelry makers. Another guy is heavy into barbecue and rubs, and that's what I've been trying to do is I've been ordering stuff from them just to help them out. But honestly, I'd rather give the money to a small independent mom and pop type operation or husband and wife than to the big box stores.
Absolutely.
Not to say they don't have their place, because they employ a lot of people, but you know what? I'm thinking that if I want to spend $50 at Walmart, I'm going to spend $50 down the road here at Joe Blow's place. I'm thinking the $50 is probably going to be more appreciated and more needed at Joe Blow's place than down in Bentonville, Arkansas.
Well, here's the way I look at it too, because I look at it this way, because I do. We don't have a lot of what you have there, Mark, and needless to say, and I've told you this when I visited you there. But what we do have is, if I was going to go into a shop in downtown Ridgefield where I live, and I bought something from a mom and pop store, and I took it home and I wasn't satisfied, I can go back and tell them what my problem was. Good luck going back to Amazon and saying I didn't like this and I want my money back. You know, it's a different story. It's a whole different feel. And I'm not trying to put down Amazon because Amazon has its place. I use Amazon. All of us, I think, do. But it's just a matter of that one-to-one touch that you can have with the community that really kind of brings it all together, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
So there's a quick question out in the chat from the very own Matt Brander, fellow Canadian. He says, "Can you ask Mark to explain what mummers are?"
In the modern day sense, the explanation of mummers can sound a little creepy.
In other words, thanks, Matt, for the question because you knew that was going to make him squirm. Go ahead.
Thanks, Matty. I appreciate that. Mummering started. It was a tradition in Newfoundland, and basically around Christmas, what you would do is you would get dressed up in the wildest looking clothes. You'd have your mother's or your grandmother's big 42 bra on outside over your work clothes or whatever. You'd have rubber boots on. Your head was completely covered, with a brin bag or whatever. And you would go from house to house in the community and you would knock on the door and, they would invite you in and you would sing for them, do a dance, entertain them basically, and in exchange for a drop of rum. And then they would try to guess who the people are behind it. By the end of the night, it can get, the libations will have flown exceeding well. Most people in non-urban areas like mummers today, but it can be a little creepy. Somebody pounding on your door, you don't know who it is. You got a bunch of people come in and they just start having a scoff and singing and breaking out the accordion and stuff. It's all in good fun. It's usually in smaller communities. You can figure, I think I know who that is over there. But
Lewis, a Klondike craftsman, who's also a fellow Canadian, said it's still a tradition there.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Because as the night gets longer, the mummers don't walk down the road; they kind of end up stumbling down the road. Yeah, and they kind of fall over themselves to your front door towards the end, as opposed to walking up and knocking politely.
Pretty much.
I would welcome those people into my home anytime they want to come on in. Let's go.
If I wanted to see female teenage mothers falling all over the place drunk, I'd just go into town.
That's awesome. I got some questions for you, though, Mark. If you are prepared, and I have to be honest with you, our resident question maker, Mr. Andy Pugh, thank you once again, Andy, has taken it rather easy on you. I have to say this week. Thank you,
Andy. Thank you.
I haven't. Just wait.
Because some of the stuff Andy comes up with can make you turn your head and go, "Say what?" But this week, thank you for not being crazy.
Andy, your check is in the mail.
He's got 3 questions. We can probably blow through these pretty quick. Mark, what is Mark's making of choice? And I'm going to interpret this because I normally do, and it upsets Andy, which is exactly why I do this. Because I'm going to rephrase that question into, if you are let loose in your shop and Mark is just going to have fun doing something, what is it you're probably going to end up doing? And if you say sanding, I will fly up there. I will fly up there and slap you. So don't say that. What if you stumble into that shop you're sitting in right now, and you just say, you know what? I'm just going to have some fun today. What are you going to have some fun doing?
Drinking.
It's a cop-out answer, but it's actually 2. I think if push comes to shove, I'd have to say making pens because I really enjoy that. But making things for others, and not necessarily commission pieces. I was actually Chris. You're familiar with my side yard, which is all completely cleaned out now.
Thank you.
I was out working this year on doing some stuff there, and Gail decided that she wanted a raised bed garden, and which turned into a 2-day affair because of the amount of digging that I had to do. But when I was finished doing it, Gailey doesn't ask me for a whole lot, so when she did ask for this, it gave me a tremendous sense of pleasure to do that for her. But when I'm making pens, usually with wood that people give me that have some special significance in their lives, their father, their grandfather, aunt, or whatever had this tree or built this barn or whatever. They're gone now, and they got some wood from it, and I turn it into pens or whatever, bottle stoppers or whatever small things that they've asked for, as just a keepsake for them. So when I'm doing stuff like that, that's usually makes me the happiest, because I know at the end of the day, yeah, it looks like a nice pen or a bottle stopper or whatever, but I know that to the average person, but I know that to the people that are going to be receiving these, it's going to mean a whole hell of a lot. And that's what gets it. That's why I started doing the hashtag wood with memory, wood with meaning. And
that's basically that's what you call it there in Nova Scotia. And here in the States, and it's not a very widely popular thing because a lot of people don't do what you do, Mark. I tend to do a little bit of it myself. I don't do as much as you do, but I do some. That's called heritage woodworking. It's heritage. It's heritage that means nothing to Joe Blow, but it means something to Susie Brown. Yes. And it means a lot to Susie Brown because this is a heritage piece of wood for her that she wants you to, and she's trusted you with, to turning into something nice for her. That's because, and you know what? I agree with you, Mark. That gives you a lot of satisfaction.
Yeah.
It really does. All right. Next question. What is your history of making? Do you have a history, or you just kind of like one day decided, oh hell, I need to put up a door, and I'll start from there, and then just kind of grew? I mean,
almost. I didn't. A shop was never offered in high school when I was going to school. It only started. We're here now. I got transferred here with the airline in 2001 from London, Ontario, and I didn't know. It was funny. I would pass a Lee Valley every single day going to work. I had no idea what a Lee Valley was until I moved here. And I'm kicking myself now. But I'm probably richer for not knowing it at that point. But when we moved here in 2001, it started out, Gail wanted a little flower bed. And I had some of those mini railway ties. And I did not even have so much as a hammer. And I went out to Wally World, and I bought a circular saw and a jigsaw, and it just started off from there. And then I started, YouTube wasn't quite as big then. Actually, YouTube wasn't even on the go then. But I have a tremendous library of books. We would go out to yard sales and literally buy a banana box full of old wood magazines.
That makes me so happy to hear that, because
well, the wood magazines have
these youngsters around here, they don't understand where we had to come from in order to get over here.
Research stuff. Go to the library. But you could buy a box of wood magazines for like $5, and I was and I started from that, and then just started slowly picking up more. But it's funny because Chris, how many times would you read in one of those old woodworking magazines, Popular Woodworking, Wood, Fine Woodworking? Somebody would write in with a question, and and then there would be an answer, or they would publish it at least. But you think about the timeline involved here. You have somebody who sits down, writes a letter, sends it in, it gets picked, and then several months later,
it's out in the magazine.
It'll get published, and then a few months after that, we have a response to Chris in Connecticut who asked about dovetails.
Right.
And there it is, so I mean, it's almost a year-long process.
It took like a year to get the answer, right?
Well, yeah, it almost took a year. But here we were, and I love this story because it kind of brings together, woodworkers because for the most part, it's a solitary endeavor that we do. We're usually alone in our shops. Until we got the advent of Google Hangouts and stuff, and I'll never forget it. Matt and Jason from New Brunswick were over here. I had a problem with my bandsaw. Russ Clarity from Florida was online, and Peter from Germany, Peter Freitag. And it was Russ had found the schematics for my saw. It's an old saw, and Peter was in the German Air Force, and he specialized in electronics and schematics and that. So Russ finds it, sends the file to Peter, who figures out what it is that we need to do. And here I thought about it. I said, it's a guy from Newfoundland moves to Nova Scotia. 2 guys from New Brunswick show up, and then we get to try to fix a bandsaw. The guy in Florida figures out where the resource is, and the guy in Germany tells us how to do it. How cool is that? And it took an hour. I mean, like I said, going back to Chris from Connecticut is asking about dovetails and getting a year-long response. Saw's up and running in an hour.
And a year later, the response you got may have actually answered the question, or maybe it really never did. We've got a question out here from the chat. I want to put it up on the screen here for us. It's from the Klondike Craftsman. Are there enough gas stations left open on the Cabot Trail for motorcycles not to run out? Ask me why it matters to me.
Okay, first of all, yes, there are. And I'm sure there's one hell of a story behind that.
Okay, so for the non-Canadian in the room, what is the Cabot Trail? I'm assuming it's some kind of rural long.
Yeah, it's a scenic ride. It's absolutely spectacular that runs around Cape Breton Island, which is part of Nova Scotia. It's connected by a causeway. It's actually they've won. I think Condé Nast picked it as one of the top spots in the world for a road trip, and it's exceptionally hilly, borderline mountainous, but in the fall it is utterly spectacular. So I'm sure somebody ran out of gas on his motorcycle there, which is where I'm sure that question is probably coming from. But yes, the gas stations are still open.
But what a great place to ride a bike, man.
Yeah,
I mean, and Richard, you'd have to go there to see it, to know what they're talking about. But just you would appreciate it. You really would. All right, final question from Andy Pugh, and then we can move on and talk about Jamie's experiences with you, and then we can talk about mine. And I'm laughing about never mind.
Chris, can we drag this out?
Yeah.
Run out of time.
Ladies and gentlemen, he does not want to talk about his experiences with Jamie Page. What a surprise!
Who does?
Andy's last question is, well, what is your future for making? Do you just plan on doing what you're doing now and just moving down the road, or do you have any aspirations to do anything more, or are you just really kind of just, I'm happy doing what I'm doing, and
I'm pretty much happy doing what I'm doing. I'm still a number of years away from retirement. Off in 6 years. I'm happy doing what I'm doing, making projects for around the house, making be it pen work or making stuff on the lathe, flat work, scroll sawing, just to try and get Jamie on side. Actually, no, that's a lie. My scroll saw is back in its normal spot, and I was actually using it earlier this week. So
he said the
proper
word.
gate open, yeah.
I've upgraded.
Oh, very nice.
I'm actually using it as a mic stand at the moment.
Got to find a use for it somewhere, I suppose.
I'm pretty happy doing what I'm doing. I come down. There's some days that I'm full of energy and I want to come down and do something, and I get down here and I just kind of look around, and then all of a sudden it just leaves me and I'm just not feeling it. I actually found that I come down. Last year was a really bad year for me, and it was I went through a really bad depression last year. But I found that Gail would say, well, go downstairs for 15 minutes, go put something away. And then 15 minutes, I'd put something away, and then I'd find something else to pick at. A lot of my favorite time in the shop is just spent pottering, just picking away at little things, nothing major. No, not building cabinetry. I'm not reinventing the wheel down here. I'm just tweaking things a little bit, and that's kind of my happy place, and that's what I enjoy. I don't want to have to turn it into a job. And
No, I hear you.
I think the joy goes.
I hear you. That's why we all keep reinventing our own shops.
Yeah, but you know, it's interesting you say that actually, Mark. You know, it's just 15 minutes, just kind of pottering around, not really doing anything, maybe not even really achieving anything in the long term that you can see, and that's the the differentiation. It's doing you the world of good, particularly in the sort of scenario that you kind of talked about. And it does sometimes, it niggles me when you hear people talking about that person never makes anything, they never they're always commenting on this, that and the other, but they never do anything other than shop projects, and they never make more. And you just think that person is benefiting from just doing whatever it is they're doing, enjoying what they're doing. And I think there's so many people as artists, as makers in whatever medium or discipline that you've already talked about with the you've got in your area, who get the same benefits mentally, physically, emotionally from just pottering. That it's just as important, if not more important, than somebody who makes something to order, does something on commission, on tap, as it were. And that, I think people forget that aspect of it. Just hugely important it is, particularly for somebody living in perhaps a more rural setting than somebody living in the big city that's all hustle and bustle. Do you know?
Yeah, if you're isolated, I mean, it's one thing to have physical isolation; it's another thing to have mental isolation. And if this, going into your shop or going into your studio, or if you're a painter and you're rearranging your palettes, or you're fiddling with your canvases, if you're a glass worker or bead worker, whatever it is, sometimes just pottering around. I remember, well, three years ago, I was recovering from surgery, and I was down here in the shop. I had a tumor removed, and I had a really hard time getting over the stairs, and I finally made it down over the stairs. And Gail was down here. We had a fire in the fireplace, and I spent probably 3.5 hours sorting screws. And it was so cathartic, and I was just so happy just to be down here. I mean, sorting screws is not a difficult job, but it was one that needed to be done. But because it had been so long since I've been in the shop, I was just happy to be in the shop doing anything. And if you can find the get up and go to get into your shop or your studio, just go in for 10 or 15 minutes to do one thing. Oh, I'm going to put this away.
Right.
Or, I'm just going to tidy off my desk, and then just see where it leads. And sometimes it doesn't lead anywhere. You're just like, yeah, okay, that's done. I'm just not feeling it today. And I find that if that's the mood that I've got, that I'm just not feeling it, I'll just go back upstairs and, we'll put on Turner Classic Movies and watch something, with Bogart in it. But other times, it can lead to, literally being down here for 7 to 8 hours. And quite happy.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It always leads to something, whether it's right there and then, or whether it's the next time you pop down to do the next thing. Hugely beneficial.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Jamie's moving that microphone closer. He's making me nervous.
No, I think Jamie wants to talk about his. Because I know you and Jamie.
So
wait, hold on. I think all of us have met. I know we met. We met in England.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Okay, Jamie, go ahead. I'm sorry. I just want to make sure that people knew that we had met each other personally.
Yeah. So Matt Brander's actually got another question. I think he asked it just to spite me, to stop me from asking my little thing.
Keep it coming, viewers.
Matt says, Mark has worked with some historic woods before when making pens. What piece of wood has the biggest story?
Gotta be the blue nose.
I can't believe Matt's asked a serious question, if I'm honest.
Blue Nose, the Blue Nose too. It's a famous Canadian sailing vessel. It's a replica of the original Blue Nose, which was actually a working fishing boat that won the Fisherman's Cup as the fastest schooner in between Canada and New England back in the early 1900s. And in the
1910, I believe, 1910.
Yeah, 1909, 1910, yeah. And anyway, there was the current iteration of that is the Blue Nose 2, The original Blue Nose is on the Canadian dime, and actually they commissioned the Blue Nose 2. I believe it was 1961. It was actually commissioned by the Olin Brewing Company here in Nova Scotia as a sailing ambassador for their beer, Schooner Lager, and it served now as a Canadian sailing ambassador for close to 60 years. And I was able to get my hands on some of the wood I met the official wood reclaimer from the project, and I was actually able to turn a lot of pens out of that. And it was actually it was kind of difficult because a lot of the wood is laminated together, like stuff for handrails, mahogany and teak and angelique wood. And I was running into a lot of difficulties on the lathe. My tools were dulling really quickly, and I couldn't figure out why. And in between the laminations, you would see this white stuff that was in there, and I had no idea what it was, but it turned out to be salt from years of impregnation on the seas, and that's what was dulling my tools.
Wow.
But it was once I figured out that, then it became much easier to deal with. But again, because it's there's a story behind the wood. I've got walnut from the Louis Saint Laurent, which is the Canadian Coast Guard's largest icebreaker. I got from the wardroom table. I did a pen for a friend of mine who's since passed away, but who served in the Coast Guard. But he actually got me to make a pen for a friend of his, and he was the master of the Louis when it came into port, when it had its major overhaul done, its refit, when this wood came off. And to him, that was, again, going back to heritage wood. To anyone else, walnut's a beautiful wood. But to him, it came off the handrail in the companionway leading to the bridge. Every single person that ever sailed on that vessel that he was in command of, or, well, since the keel was laid down, at some point their hand was on that railing. And to that retired captain, that meant the world.
Yeah.
It's just insane to think that many people at that historical place has used that, physically held and used that piece of wood for its intended purpose in the situation that it was originally placed. Like, wow.
There's another chap here in Nova Scotia, Daryl Eisner is his name. He's a pen turner of some renown, I must say. He was actually selected by the Canadian government there a number of years ago to do the official G20 gifts from Canada to world leaders, and he had turned a bunch of pens. I took a class with him at Lee Valley once, and I remember him telling me there was I can't think the name of the convent escapes me, but it was the world headquarters for this particular order of nuns, and they were there was only, I think, a dozen of these nuns left in Nova Scotia, and they were all elderly. But every nun that was ever in their order, and this order used to be worldwide, was trained in Halifax, and they had this grand staircase. Kind of think of the Titanic grand staircase, that kind of a curving thing. And when they were tearing the place down, they were actually deconstructing it to save as much as they could. They approached him with some of the wood from this railing, and there was only about 10 of them left, and he turned pens for them. And to them, it was like every nun in the world who was ever a member of their order at some point was here in Halifax, and their hand would have been on this rail. And these nuns were, I suppose the youngest was probably about 70, and the oldest was, I think, probably in her 90s. But to them, that meant the world. I mean, their convent was gone, but this was the touchstone back to everyone that ever came through the order. And that's the stuff. It's the story behind the wood. It's not the piece of wood. It's what it represents.
It's the story behind it. Absolutely. And talking about stories behind it, Jimmy, when was the first time you met Mark?
Well, funny, that's actually a really good segue. Actually, you saying story behind it.
Thank you.
Because before I get to that story, I've had the Jacobsons in my personal inbox message trying to make me laugh for all of this. Now, a little while ago, Carl went through a procedure and he had a camera placed in one of his orifices that he shouldn't have been shouldn't have been placed. Well, they've just sent me the pictures.
Please share.
So you'll be on Photoshop later with that then, will you?
You guys are
Yeah.
nuts. If you don't think Jamie's going to do something with that, you. Oh my. Anyway, go ahead, Jamie.
And then so yeah. Anyway, so I think the first place I met Mark was 2017 in Atlanta, where I nearly destroyed the place.
I remember this.
Yeah. So I think it's I-85. I think it basically burnt down to the ground. Hashtag not my fault. But and
Meaning, yes, it was, but that's okay.
yeah. So
Jamie, they're
that
opening a
was
Waffle
the-
House near you. Why don't you go there now?
Yeah. Yeah. So that was the first time I met Mark. I've met Mark a few times now. There's been Maker Central. We met Mark. So yeah, there's that. So then we come to a story. I can't remember the first time I heard this story, but every time I hear it, it always brings a smile to my face. And over to you, Mark. I think you should share it with the rest of the people.
I have no idea what you're referring to, Senator.
I plead the fifth. The gist of the story is this, ladies and gentlemen. There was a night that Mark partook in, and Mark, you can correct me along the way as you see fit. It was let's say it was a very festive night that Mark happened to partake in. And so when the next morning came, Mark was still in a rather festive headspace. That's what
Yeah, let's go with that.
More scatterbrained, I think, because
the remnants of a festive evening remained with Mark the following morning. And Mark, I'll allow you to take it from there because I've set the groundwork of what you did. That was actually really rather kind of funny.
I can't believe this is still a thing.
This story is kind of like Chris's cutting boards.
Yeah, remember my cutting board.
That was such a polite Canadian way of saying, oh, God, are you still going on about this? I can't believe this is still a thing.
Now, the year was 2015, and we were all in Kansas City, and it was the myself and a whole pile of video content creators. We were hanging out in the lobby, and we had decided we were having a lobby party that night. Nick Ferry was there, Ted Alexander was there. Sterling was there, Sterling Davis, and Austin, and a couple other chaps. Anyway, we drank until 6 in the morning, and at one point the hotel manager brought us a bowl of a rather large bowl of iced beer on ice, and ice cream at 3 in the morning. And we thought he was trying to tell us to. Boys, you can't drink your own beer in the lobby. Go to bed. That kind of deal. Next thing we know, he's coming out and giving us free beer. But anyway, I got a couple of hours sleep and went down the next morning to have my coffee. And I go down in the elevator. Now we're in I can't remember the name of the hotel, but if anybody's familiar with the story of the Kansas City hotel that had the walkway collapse probably 20 odd years ago now. I think it might have been the Hyatt Regency at the time. Anyway, this is the hotel we're in. And we go down, we're up on the 14th or 15th floor. And I ride down in this really old elevator. And there's this lovely woman there. I don't know, she's in her 70s, I guess. And we just have this wonderful chat. We're going down and she was kind of half smiling and half, averting her eyes. And it was just a general, guest in a hotel chat. Where are you from? Blah, blah, blah. Get down off to the main floor. Say goodbye to her. She turns right. I turn left to go towards the lobby where the coffee machine is. And it's an expansive, wide open lobby. And I walked right in front of this group of, it's probably 10 or 11 women that were having looked like a morning meeting. I don't know if they were staff or maybe convention delegates, and they were on an L-shaped sectional Chesterfield. And I walked past him, just kind of nodded to him and smiled. You know, I'm a Canadian. I'm a friendly guy. And I go over and I get my coffee from the little coffee bar there. And I was walking across the lobby to the business bar, the business area where they have the printers and stuff, because I wanted to print out our boarding cards. We were flying out that morning. And as I'm walking across, I saw my friend Corey, who I had met on the flight going down, who's from Ottawa, a fellow Canadian. And I called out to him across the lobby, Corey, just loud enough that, people would, kind of turn their head. And we go over and we're sitting there drinking our coffee and just chatting. We're on these bar stools and printed out the cards, drinking our coffee. Everything is right in the world. And I happened to look down, and that's when I noticed I didn't have my pants on. And I looked at Corey and I said, I'm not wearing pants. Corey looked at me kind of puzzlingly and said, you're not wearing what? And he looked down, and with that, he almost fell off the damn bar stool. And now I'm thinking to myself, oh crap. I'm at literally the farthest point from the elevator bank that I could possibly be in this hotel. And I'm like, well, what am I going to do with this at this point? It's not like I can find a potted plant and, no, I was wearing underwear. So let's just put that out. But it's still kind of embarrassing. So I go back across the lobby. I was like, well, I got to own this. So I just strutted right back across the lobby, looked at the group of women that were there, and I could see their eyes just kind of following me. And I looked at them and I nodded graciously. Morning, ladies. Got back on the elevator. Back up I go. I get into our room. Gail had just gotten out of the shower. She was drying off, and she just looks at me. And I'm standing there, just in my underwear and a shirt. And she just burst out laughing. And I'm like, oh, be quiet. Grab a pair of pants, put them on, go back down the elevator. As I get off the elevator again, and I was walking out to the main door to go have a cigarette at that time because I still smoked. And I caught a glimpse of one of the women that I had just walked past that were having their morning meeting. And obviously she said something to the rest of them, because all in unison, 10 heads all go and look at the front door at me. I said, oh, look, he's wearing pants again. So anyway, I go out and have my cigarette, and that was about it. But that was Kansas City 5 years ago. And that story just will not leave me. To the point where some of my colleagues will insist on bringing that up from time to time at work. So,
and you can understand why.
I bet there's a notice board in the staff room of that hotel, security footage of things that have happened over the years, and there's a picture of Mark strolling across with his coffee. Morning, everyone.
That's like when you're a kid and you have that nightmare that you show up at the school bus to go to school and you forgot to put your pants on. Mark actually did that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Mark, you're my hero for doing that. Anyway, you really are.
I can either run from it, or own it.
Well, you owned it. I applaud you.
There you go.
Now, Mark and I have known each other since the Maritime Woodworker show. I think is where we first met. And I think the first time we met was the first time I was on that show. So we go back.
We go back a ways.
We go back a ways.
Yeah.
So anyway, but before Baker Central, the first one, Mark arranged for me to fly Air Canada with him at a discount rate. So I ended up flying to Nova Scotia to see Mark and stay with Mark and Gail. And you have to understand, and Richard, you'll understand this from me. I'm a bit of a history nut. And so going to Nova Scotia was definitely a tick off of the old bucket list, because there is a lot of history that people are probably not even aware of that happened in the Nova Scotia area. So going to see Mark and Gail was priority number one. Priority number two was I wanted Mark to show me around the place, and he did. But one thing I'll never forget, and it's not because I made it public, it's because I was so pissed off because Mark has the most amazing wood outlets available to him that you would not believe. I'm stuttering because I'm telling you, I still have never seen anything like this. I walked into a shop that Mark took me to, and I'm talking plywood. They had ebony plywood. Ebony plywood.
And I love the way Chris just turns into a gibbering wreck when he just even starts thinking about that.
But I'm looking at this. But I mean, if you want zebra wood plywood, they have it. This must be the cabinet maker's freaking dream. But they not only had it in plywood, they had it in bulk. And I'm walking around, Mark, I'm going, I think in the video that I did with when I were together, would you freaking adopt me?
Yes,
please,
you did.
I could. Yeah. Because I could come live here. This place is freaking amazing. Oh my god!
And then I ticked him off even more when I took him to another shop with a similar selection.
Yeah,
that was like 20 minutes away.
Because one wasn't enough. Mark had to show me two. Yeah,
serious question then, Mark. Do these suppliers do they just like get it from loads of different suppliers and they stock it, or do they actually kind of face these plywood boards with
I think
on site?
Honestly, I'm not sure if they face the plywood. I know they import a ton of stuff. That's East Coast Specialty Hardwoods and Halifax Specialty Hardwoods.
Oh my god, I hate
companies, but it's I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure they import most of it. But the first one that Chris and I went to, the one where he turned to the camera and said, Mark, would you please adopt me? They've got a rather large shop that leads me to think that they may do some of the facing themselves with the veneers.
Right.
But their plywood room is extensive.
It's disgusting. It's disgusting what they have in there. Anyway, but I mean, Mark took me on the tour of Nova Scotia, and Mark, you are originally, and I think you've mentioned this, you're originally from Newfoundland and Labrador, right?
Newfoundland, Labrador, yeah.
Yeah.
St. John's.
But Nova Scotia, I mean, ladies and gentlemen, if you are a maker, and you want to go take a trip somewhere and just kind of kick around, not a bad end point to end up at. I mean, having been there, I can tell you this. And if you're not happy, then complain to me later, because I don't think I'm going to get many complaints if you go there, because it was a fantastic trip, and Mark and Gail treated me wonderfully, and I spent some good time. And Richard, just so you know, Mr. Morley, Mark has a larger shop than I do.
But I mean, that's the Canadian wasteland, though, isn't it? So I mean, they've got the space up there for it. But
before I forget, Chris, because I know you have an affinity for Boston.
Yes, I do.
I think it was last night that they lit the. I'm not sure if it's last night or if it's maybe next Saturday, but they'll light the Christmas tree on Boston Common.
Yes, sir.
And it's been a tradition that the Christmas tree in Boston Common is a gift from the people of Nova Scotia to the city of Boston.
There's history behind that. There's history behind this.
There's a huge amount of history behind that. And when the Halifax explosion took place in 17 or 18, the First World War was still on the go.
It was during the Great War. War, yeah.
Yeah. There was two ships collided in Halifax Harbor. And the Mont Blanc, which was a munitions ship, and the Emo, which was a Belgian relief supply ship, collided in Halifax Harbor at the narrowest point. And the resulting explosion was the largest pre-nuclear explosion in the world. And everything in Halifax was flattened, and I mean flattened. There were more cases of people losing their eyes, because back in the day, windows would have it was just plate glass. The explosion, it didn't happen right away. They collided, and the munitions ship caught fire, and so everybody that was kind of up on the slopes of the hills were standing at their windows watching this when the explosion and the shockwave went out. There was it was in the that night or the next night there was a snowstorm, and they were trying to get relief into Halifax. There's a famous train dispatcher, Vince Coleman, who managed to stop an inbound passenger train well before it got into basically the explosion radius area, because he knew what was about to happen, and he just stayed at his post, just tapping away on the Morse keys to get the train to stop. But the first relief, there was some relief came from Truro and from New Brunswick, mostly personnel. Like I said, it was a snowstorm that night, and there was a train relief load of supplies and people that came from Boston, and the Canadian Maritimes and what we call the Boston states, generally New England, have always had a close relationship. But this kind of the help that we got from Boston for the survivors of the Halifax explosion has always been a part of us. And every year, the government selects a farm here in Nova Scotia from landowners to approach them to see who would like to donate the Boston tree, and it is a high honor, and it's a big deal here. And I don't know if the people of Boston actually understand how much a part of this story is to this day is still, the Nova Scotians still talk about this. I mean, this is like it happened a little while ago, and it's been a thank you gift every year.
I don't think the general population of Boston understands it, Mark. I'll be honest with you, but the people who are familiar with the story, I'm pretty sure it tears them up, because that's cool.
Not wanting to go down a rather sort of a morbid rabbit hole there, but anything like that, anything to do with that kind of gratitude and kind of good-spirited nature by people. Because, let's face it, you go back to that event and it was the spirit and the desire of those people to want to go and help in the first place. But that kind of gratitude over that kind of period in time, personally, I think that's really important, not just to kind of keep that going, but the fact that, like you were saying, Mark, it is a big deal for those landowners to donate that tree. My question is, and
it's an honor for them to do it. Yeah,
absolutely. And the fact that it's the honor and the gratitude of the Canadian people, does it actually matter?
Yes.
People in Boston.
Yes.
You know what? I would, those who know the story,
it matters.
Definitely appreciate it.
Yeah.
I was actually speaking to an air traffic controller about a little over a week ago, when the tree left here to be transported down, and she didn't know the story. And so while we were chatting, she was in the flight planning section. She wasn't actually controlling airplanes at the time. I was telling her the story, and she said, she actually stopped me. She said, "Can you just go back?" She said, "I got to put you on speaker, because there's other people here who've never heard this story." And there was 3 or 4 of her colleagues that wanted to hear this story, and they were just fascinated by it and had no idea.
What's unfortunate about it is that the people who don't know about it, that live in the Boston areas, the Boston states, as Mark puts it, it's a tribute to them, something that they should be proud of, and they're not aware of it. That's sad.
See, I'm not saying it doesn't matter that they don't know, but what I'm saying is that of the two sides of that story, the gratitude side of it, to me at least, that's the important bit,
right?
Because if I go to help somebody, I'm like, well, I'm going to help you. That's fine. I'm glad you're grateful, but that's not the important side. The important side is the fact that you know of it and that you aren't grateful, and not the help that came. Do you see what I mean?
Well, the important part is the help. The gratitude comes later.
At the time, definitely, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But we're talking 100 years later now.
But it's a fantastic story, and Mark actually, and I don't want to carry this on too much further because we're very, very, very short on time. But Mark actually gave me a tour around the harbor where that accident occurred. And on that loop, and just as another one, I don't want to go off on a conversation about this, but just off of that loop is also a burial ground for where a lot of the people from the Titanic were buried.
Yes, the largest Titanic graveyard in the world is in Halifax.
Because they retrieved the bodies from the ocean and brought them to Halifax because it was the quickest route.
To this day, there's an infant's grave in the cemetery there that still is adorned with toys and teddy bears and that sort of thing.
Absolutely amazing. And I'm telling you, that's what I'm telling you guys that are listening to us right now. If you're a maker, if you're looking to get into something that's really cool and really interesting, Nova Scotia is not a bad place to maybe put your sights to, because they've got some killer stories, great history, and a lot of artisans up there. Anyway, we got to let Jamie sing at some point in time.
Yeah. I was trying to drag it out so we didn't have time, to be honest.
Well, no, it's
Well,
I don't.
Richard did mention morbid, so I guess that's a good segue.
That's a good point, Jamie. Whatever you want to go, my brother, go right ahead.
Right, it's time for Jamie's page.
Oh, jeez.
So, this episode is brought to you in part by. Actually, Richard hasn't done the sponsors.
I was going to do it after.
Right,
going to do it
okay.
after. I realised.
Well, anyway, this part is going to be brought to you in part by Scott the Blue Light Turner and actually Richard Morley. So the first one is Scott the Blue Light Turner. So this is where I go on my self promotion. So my premiere is coming out in 26 minutes, and it's actually inspired by Scott the Blue Light Turner. So go and shoot him a subscribe if you could, and show him some love because he's an awesome guy. Obviously, helped me done my workshop. Caitlin the Cat's premiere is on 15 minutes after mine. And Richard Morley, his second channel actually hit 1,000 subscribers today. So he's been a bit greedy by having 2 channels, but there you go. So
do you know what? I haven't posted anything on that channel for like 4, maybe 5 years. So it just amazes me that people still subscribe to it.
So my shout out this week is Mr. Steve Carmichael. He made some miniature road signs using the scroll saw, like road signs from around where he lives. My personal favourite of his was the Waffle House sign that he made. I kind of fell in love with that place ever since 2017, and no need to explain any more about that. I've actually got a Waffle House cup that Sterling bought me. And that's on my Daniel Hardew walnut palette that he made as well, coaster. So that's my shout out, Mr. Steve Carmichael.
Awesome, Mark. You're our guest, so you go next.
I actually wanted to shout out, and I don't know his last name. His name is Wes, and he's got a channel called Woodworking Monetized. He's only got, I don't know, 450, 460 subscribers. So I'd like to see him get a little bit of love from the community. He's got like 8 videos, and he started out with a very modest budget. I think it was like $190. He bought himself, I think it was a drill and a circular saw and some wood. And he made, now I'm drawing a blank. He made, I think it was one of the plans that Steve had, not Steve Carmichael, Steve
Ramsey.
California. Who?
Ramsey.
Yeah. Jesus, how could I forget his name? Yeah, and then he would sell these, and so he sold those, and he in his channel he has his expenses and his income. And it just showed like, okay, so I made this much from this project, and then he went out and he spent, and then on his next project he would buy another tool, buy some more wood, and then he would sell those. So he just kept showing the process of how you can start with something very small, very basic, a drill and a circular saw, and you could do an awful lot with that, and you can generate income for yourself. So for somebody who's starting, if you look at a lot of these people online, and even myself, even though I haven't put a video out in a while, but I will soon, I have a large investment in tools that didn't happen overnight.
No.
But
No.
this chap Wes, he's got. It's just so cool to watch how his shop is growing organically, and it's woodworking monetized. And if people could give him some love, I would really appreciate that. And one other thing that I wanted to mention, I wanted to send some love out to our good friend Mike Fulton and his wife Andrea, who is still sick with this bloody virus. And I hope and pray that everything is resolved soon for you and you can get back to normal.
Yeah, get well soon, Andrew. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Mike, we've been thinking about you. Who we have? Richard, do you got anything, or do you want me to go?
No, you go first because I don't want to potentially steal it.
Okay, no problem. My shout out goes to this week to Brett McAfee from the Fools with Tools podcast. He put out a video this week that I thought was really instructive and pretty helpful for anyone thinking about getting into forging and or metalworking. If you're wondering whether you should take the jump or not and how to go about doing it, this might be one little piece to the puzzle for you. He put out a video and he titled it "Choose Your Forge: Coal versus Propane." And if you're into forging metal and pounding on metal, that's going to be kind of important to you because he shows us the differences between the two and what can be done and what can't be done and that kind of stuff. So I just want to give some love to Brett for putting out some love to the community to help teach some people what they probably need to know before they jump headfirst into this and save them some money. So, Brett, you got my love, man. Thank you.
Cool. And fortunately, you haven't stolen mine, and I'm going to go completely the opposite direction. And my shout out this week: have you seen Tim Sway's latest project?
I have not.
yet, no.
That's horrible for me to say too.
So, in true Tim Sway style, Tim is making guinea pig tanks. Little laser cut cardboard, put together flat pack tanks.
I do love Tim.
Guinea pigs will run into and then basically run around the floor. So you've got these little cardboard tanks fighting with guinea pigs inside them. I just thought it was such a cool idea and hugely entertaining to boot. So yeah, if you haven't seen it, it's like a 4-minute video. Absolutely hysterical. So nice one, Tim.
Awesome.
That's pretty cool. I'm not sure if we're doing our free win on Patreon, but we do an after party for those people listening live and not for the people that listen afterwards that can't listen on SoundCloud and all those other places. But we might. Would depends. But as always, tonight's show was brought to you in part by Yorkshire Grit, the Woodturners Abrasive Paste, our good friend Chad at Mancrafting, Pam from Highland Moxes, and also Steve Nealon from Harneal Media. He does all the internet stuff that Jamie used to take the credit for. If you want to find out more about those sponsors, and seriously, I genuinely suggest you should because they are awesome people and they do. I said it. Awesome things. Head on over to the website, makersinternationalpodcast.com/sponsors, and all the information is there. I don't think I missed anything out. Chris, did I? Have I?
Nope.
I, Mike?
You rocked it, man. Go for it.
Excellent, because I literally just made it all up from memory, so I'm quite impressed with myself.
Well done.
Mark, thank you for coming on. It's always a treat seeing you, and I'm a bit gutted we didn't get to spend a bit of time together at Maker Central this year, but presumably you're planning on popping over for the next one?
Hopefully.
Maybe.
Good.
We'll see. So it's a slightly bigger commute for you. I do understand, but
just
worth
bad. We'll just pop on over, Richard. Yeah, right.
5,000 miles. Be fine.
Hopefully by then they'll reinstate the Halifax Heathrow flight. If not, I'll just backtrack to Montreal and then come over.
There you go.
And let's face it, Montreal is a hell of a backtrack.
Yeah, only a lot.
Not just in mileage either.
It's not
awesome.
There's someone out in the chats, Paul Wilmore's out in the chat, says, where can we find Mark? So do you want to plug your social medias?
I think
are you basically Jurassic Woodmark on everything?
Woodmark is on Woodmark and Gale actually is our Facebook page. Don't do a lot of stuff there, mostly on just my personal page, Mark Christopher. And on YouTube, Mark Christopher, I think, should do it. But
there you go.
Anyway,
rock and roll.
We'll make sure we'll do the legwork for you.
We'll make sure link in the description.
Yeah.
It's gonna
When I
make
say we, obviously we mean Chris, because Chris is the one.
Yeah,
that does
it's gonna
the
make me do the work to promote him. I'm gonna need some money here, boys, sooner or later. I mean, this is just getting old.
Or some ebony plywood.
Oh, yes. For crying out loud! All right,
I'll see
Richard.
what I'll see if I can get you some Gaboon plywood, Chris.
Oh
Is that Duke Kaboom plywood?
no, that's kaboom. There is none plywood. That's wrap it up, Richard.
Brilliant. Honestly, Mark, thanks for coming on. It's always a pleasure to chat with you. Big thank you to all those listeners live in the audience tonight. People like Chris of the Dragons, Woodworking Monetized, which we were just talking about there, Wes. I know Emma's in the chat.
Hi, Wes.
Turnings and loads of other people. Shop Dog Woodshop, Portal Woodworks, Wayne the Wood Turner, Andy Pugh, P. Foster. Big thank you. We will see you next week, hopefully. I'm not sure if we're hanging around afterwards, but yeah. Till then, we talk about something, no idea what. Take care.
Have a great week,
Check in,
everybody.
everybody.
Thanks very much, guys. Have a good week.
Perfect.